in 1986, when I had my first child, I had my child in March, and in May of 1986, there was a feature story in the Commercial Appeal about a woman named Reba Moody. And her son was Kenneth Moody, who was one of the Memphis Tiger basketball players who had recently gone to the Final Four. And I think they highlighted her because on Mother's Day, because she was a mother of 10 children, actually 11, but one had died. And when she was pregnant with her 11th child, her husband was killed in a car accident. But she raised these 10 remaining children, and they were all good kids, and they all went to college. And that story really impacted me, sitting there, married to Mike Rose, who is the CEO and chairman of Holiday Inns Worldwide. I was sitting in our sun porch on a 30-acre estate, holding a baby in my arms, and wondering if I could be as good a mother as this Reba Moody was. I wondered if I could be as successful a mother. This was a role that I wasn't as confident in as some of my other roles. And so the reporter doing the story said, asked her if there was anything in life that she didn't have that she would want now that she's at this age. And she said, well, she'd never just been able to go into a store and buy a store-bought dress. That she sewed dresses, or she got them secondhand, and she just wanted that freedom. And I saw that as an opening, reading this, for me to maybe get to know her. So I called the reporter and I said, I'd like to take Miss Moody shopping for that store-bought dress. And the reporter said, well, she's a proud woman. I don't know if she would accept that, but I'll call her on your behalf. So she did, and then the reporter called me back and said, like I thought, she really doesn't need your charity. And I said, no, but she doesn't understand. Then tell her I would like to do it for me. And so she called Miss Moody back, and Miss Moody said, well, tell whomever this is to call me directly. So I called Miss Moody and told her I'd like to take her shopping, and she tried to dissuade me, but got that I was determined and said, okay then. So I drove my Mercedes down into South Memphis in an area that was extremely depressed, and picked up Miss Reba Moody and took her to Goldsmith's, which then was still downtown, and had hired a personal shopper to help us. So we looked around, and the personal shopper was gathering up dresses, and she was in there trying them on, and pretty soon I said, Miss Moody, are you okay? I'd like to come in and see you in one of the dresses. And she didn't respond right away, so I said, Miss Moody. And when I kind of opened up the curtain, she was sitting on that little bench, and tears were flowing down her face, and she said, they're all so beautiful. I can't possibly choose one. And I said, well, then let's get them all. So we bought 6 dresses, and we bought hats and shoes and purses, and just had the best time. And I took her home, and then I came in, and she offered me water, and we sat. And then I had the opportunity to say, how did you do it? How did you raise these 10 children with the limited means that you had? And over the course of the next 10 years, we developed a deep friendship. It was a friendship that was built on mutual respect. It was confined to this back and forth. She told me things that she couldn't share with her children. I told her things and asked her questions, and she became sort of my mentor in mothering, and I became her confidant. And that whole time I never met her 10 adult children until she developed breast cancer and didn't tell anyone, maybe didn't even know it herself, because she wasn't getting the proper medical treatment and medical care that she, annual mammograms, for example, and quickly declined in health and was on her deathbed, and she told her adult children that she wanted to call Miss Rose. They'd never met me. They didn't know who I was. Certainly didn't know that I was a wealthy white woman she being what would be considered economically poor African American woman. And so I came to the hospital, and for the first time, all of us, her adult children and I, were in the same room together. And I hugged her and didn't think that would be the last time that I saw her, but it was. She died a couple days later. And I wanted to do something for her. I was in extreme distress and mourning, and I was afraid that her children wouldn't know the relationship that I had with her and the depth of that relationship. And so I called them and I said, what can I do? And they said, we'll let you know. So I waited nervously, and a couple days later, the oldest daughter called me and said, we know what we would like for you to do. We want you to buy the dress that she will be buried in. And so one of the daughters and I went to Goldsmiths, and it was very emotional. We found the dress. And then I set up a scholarship in her memory, and her youngest son, Kenneth, I was very worried about him because he was the baby, and he was in deep depression over the loss of his mother. And I just had this feeling that Miss Moody would want me to particularly look after him. And so I saw him as a very young, talented young man that was out of a job. I don't know, I guess God works in mysterious ways, because I had a fundraising dinner to raise money for the scholarship, the Miss Moody Scholarship at Lemoyne College, a historical black college here in Memphis. And I invited the mayor to speak. And it just so happened that the mayor and Ken Moody were sitting next to one another. And the mayor whispered to me that he said, did you know Ken Moody doesn't have a job? And I said, yes, I do. I'm trying to find him one. And the mayor said, well, I've got a job and I'm going to hire him. And that hiring of him allowed him and his family to really rise up from their situation. He had a baby a year later, named her Reba Moody, and asked me to be the godmother. And so to this day, 21 years later, I'm still in a relationship with a woman named Reba Moody. And that, I guess, the point of the story is to say that the sensitivity that I gained by my relationship with her has really helped me be sensitive in my philanthropy and understanding how I can go about maybe being of service in this community. Well, I think that I would say look for courage in the most unexpected places. The most courageous Americans are those that are struggling every day with less than they need. And they still get up every day, and Miss Moody had a sense of humor and a sense of optimism. I don't know where it came from, given how she had to live, but that gave me strength. And every time I feel discouraged, or every time I feel fearful about taking that next step in business, the inspiration for the very core courage that it takes can come from someone as simple as Miss Moody.